Happy Friday. This is Raven Dana, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk again a little bit about the deeper practices of mindfulness. And again, the typical practices that we think of: taking a few deep breaths, having a meditation, taking time to stare outside and just look at all the beauty, or look at the sky for a few minutes. Things that help us get back into our bodies and out of the noisy place in the mind. So a reset, an anchor, a little in touchness with reality. Those are the things that we're most familiar with, and they're great practices. But a 20-minute meditation isn't going to keep you mindful all day long. It's also, though, a good tool if in the middle of the day you find yourself stuck in the jail of the mind, to stop then and reset with a meditation, right? So many times people tell me, well, I do my meditation first thing in the morning, or I do it last thing at night. So one practice that I'm going to suggest to you is to add some of your mindfulness practices, like 10 deep breaths and looking out the window, and even a short 10-minute meditation, to break up your day when you're catching yourself thinking too much, overthinking, assessing, trapped in the jail of the mind, overwhelmed, confused. So that is a suggestion I'm making to you today. But the deeper practice that I would like you to explore with me is being mindful of the mind. And what I mean by that is finding your ability to sit in the witness chair inside your own mind and observe your thoughts. Think about what you're thinking, because what happens to us is we think and assess and make meaning and judge so quickly that we get to believing that our thoughts are facts, and they're not. So this causes a fair amount of difficulty in our lives, especially in relating to other people, where something happens. We imagine that we know what their motive is or what their meaning is, and we turn that assessment into a fact, and then we change how we relate to them, or we begin to gather evidence about our assessment by talking to other people about them, or we begin to develop a way of withholding from them to protect ourselves from the imaginary issue that we have created in our own minds. So these are the kinds of things that minding your mind will help you put an end to, and the kind of things that minding your mind will prevent. So I'm reminding you that the only way to break or change a habit or pattern or create a new one is repetition and emotional intensity. So the ability to mind your mind while the machinery is running, right, is really a valuable practice and an excellent tool. Because we make the mistake often, a lot of people live in their heads most of the time, a fair amount of the time, as if we are a mind that is dragging around a body, right? But we are embodied. Our mind and body are one. They exist within each other. The body is minded. Even our cells have awareness. So I'd like you to consider that learning to sit in the witness chair is going to bring you to a new level of understanding about yourself and about others, that's going to help you have less overwhelm, more clear communication, and a better understanding of what's going on around you in general. One of the things that happens when we're not minding our mind is that old things that we have learned even in childhood, maybe our parents were prejudiced, and we picked up a little glimmer, a little hint of that in the background, and we don't think we are, but it shows up in our thoughts, or it shows up in some subtle behaviors. Or maybe we had a dad that was very sexist, and so maybe as women, we try too hard to please. We don't want to say no, or we interpret everything that they do as a live or die situation, because we're still in some way living out our issues with our father. And maybe as men, if you had a sexist father, maybe you're sexist and don't think you are, right? So sometimes men really believe that, no, I blah, 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 I treat women as equals, except when you hear them speak and you're astonished at some of the things that they say. And so again, as we become more mindful of our mind chatter, we can also then assess whether or not that chatter is productive, and in fact, whether or not we need the chatter, right? So minding your mind is also a way of reducing the noise to signal ratio. And the signal is out here in being present. It means listening honestly, looking honestly, looking at a person without an agenda, being mindful that you might have a filter about this person, that you think a certain way about them. And the challenge then is to remove that filter just for that moment, to see if you can relate to them in this moment when they're in front of you in a way that's more honest and open and without your assessment leading the conversation. You know, it's at first harder than it seems. And as you get the knack of it, it becomes easy because you see it coming a mile away. As you learn to sit in the witness chair and observe your thoughts, you can even feel yourself physically brace when certain people say certain things, or when they do certain things, or when you even hear about them, you might feel yourself bracing. Well, you've got a story going on. There's something there. There's a there. And also in the way that, of course, you speak to yourself about yourself. One of the ways that we create tremendous overwhelm is by being hard on ourselves and by entertaining constant thoughts that unless I do X, Y, Z, I'm not doing enough, right? Perfectionistic thoughts. I'm not good enough unless I do this, or I can't do that unless I do this, or my boss isn't going to like me unless, right, like or my husband won't like me, my friends won't like me, whatever the story is. I'm inviting you to look at how much reality is in those repetitive thoughts, because I'm here to tell you, it's not nearly as much as you think. And yet you're allowing those thoughts to poison your experience of life. So minding your mind is a practice that can take you very, very, very far down the road of being peaceful, of having a quality of peacefulness about you, and in the way that you relate, and in the way that you express your relation to the world. So if you're starting from this mindful place, and you're not entering a conversation with your stories and your filters blazing, you might have a new experience. You might understand something about a situation that you would never have seen if you were living in the jail of the mind, looking through the lens of your stories. Okay? I have a story for you about that. So years ago, I had a client who was absolutely sure that her manager hated her. And she hinted, she thought she knew, and then maybe she didn't. And anyway, it came down to, there was a day when the manager walked into her office to tell her something about a file. And then she suddenly had this look on her face that my client interpreted as being disdainful or disgusted, some kind of look on her face. And then she finished her sentence quickly and exited the office quickly. Well, that was her evidence. Above all else, she doesn't like me. She doesn't want to be in my company. She doesn't even want to talk to me. Okay, very long story made short. I got her to go ask the question, what was going on with you that day that you were telling me about such and such file? I know you had this look on your face and then you exited really quickly. Now let me tell you, it took her a couple of days to be calm enough to be able to ask the question. She kept saying, so what you're saying is you want me to ask her why she doesn't like me? No. Oh, so what you're saying is you want me to ask her why she just wants to get out of my company so quickly? No. I want you not to presume that you know the answer to the question, what was going on with you that day? I noticed you made a face and you left my office really fast, right? So eventually, she did actually pose that question. And here's the result. Her manager just started to laugh and said, "Oh, that day. I wasn't feeling well that day. I bet you did see a look on my face. I knew I had to get out of your office and get to the bathroom as quickly as I could, and I didn't want to leave a little smelly surprise behind, so I got out." And then she started to laugh and laugh, and she said, I know, it's too much information. And my client was like, "No, that's good. This is great. I had no idea." And so they laughed about it. And anyway, clearly, my client, got over the issue that she was developing this story about her supervisor. So these are the kinds of things that happen, right? We see a look on someone's face, or we see someone is annoyed or upset, and we assume they're upset because of us. They're mad at us. They don't like us. The more it happens, the bigger the story gets. So, and it happens in families all the time. Happens among friends, happens among coworkers. And it also happens with people that we don't know, right? We can step up behind somebody online we're coming up to the counter, and we start to make assessments about the person in front of us. Oh, they're this, oh, they're that, oh, they're slow, oh, they're that. And it's like, well, here's the thing. Can you take a moment? That might be a golden moment to take a few breaths, get out of the mind, get down into your body, and practice 30 seconds of standing there observing, just being patient. In fact, you don't even have to call it being patient. Just be present. Look at the walls, look at the floor, look at the people around you, listen to the sounds. Let yourself get up to the counter whenever you get up to the counter, rather than assessing, judging, demonizing whoever is standing in front of you online, right? Of course, it's not the only place we do it. I would invite you to practice mindfulness in this manner, minding the mind, when you're driving. How many times, and God knows I've done it, I'm trying to get somewhere and somebody cuts me off, or they're really slow, and I'm just like, oh, please. But here's the thing. You're not living their life. You don't know if they're driving themselves to the doctor and they feel like hell. You don't know what's going on for them. So for you, for me, for any of us to automatically assume that whatever's going on is just wrong, they're inconveniencing me, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, like, it's crazy thinking. How much time do you want to spend upset over things that you're making up that have nothing to do with reality? All you can know is, this person pulled in front of me and I had to brake. That's all you can know. You can't know what's going on for them. And so, again, in the world of mindfulness, what there is to do is take a break from your own mind in that moment, breathe, and let the assessment go. It doesn't help you, and it doesn't help that person in the car in front of you. It helps no one. In fact, it adds to the pile of evidence that you collect about other drivers, so that you're that much more likely to be obsessed and upset the next time some little thing happens, right? So again, minding the mind is a very powerful thing, and it can often be make the difference between being upset, overwhelmed, overburdened, and just being peaceful and calm, being in acceptance of what's in front of you in the moment. It doesn't mean you have to like it. Being mindful doesn't mean, being la-di-da about things. What it does mean is not pouring kerosene on the fire, right? That's what it means. It means accepting what's so in front of you without inventing something that's unprovable in that moment, that's just going to make how you feel that much worse. And it can also be the difference between feeling tense and upset and feeling perfectly calm and at ease. So again, I'm inviting you to play with this practice of minding your mind. I would suggest that not only do you mind your mind from the witness chair during the day, but that at the end of the day you take 2 minutes, and before you clench, I'm not asking for hours, I'm not asking for paragraphs, 2 minutes, 2 little minutes, to write down any thoughts you had about your thoughts that day. I caught myself again thinking this or looking for evidence that so and so was, right? I'm inviting you to do that for this reason, because again, repetition and emotional intensity are the name of the game. If you just think about, oh yeah, I have all these thoughts and I'm always up in my head, and okay. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Would you like to change that game that you play with yourself so that it's a peaceful thing rather than what you normally do that gets you upset? And the assessment at the end of the day is that useful tool, is one useful tool that helps you to see the pattern at play. And the more you can see and make conscious the thing that you're doing unwittingly, the easier it is to stop it. So maybe if you know that you typically have a judgy thought about that person over there, then you can see them coming. Notice, I'm probably going to go to that judgy place. And as a game to play, take a breath and see if you can come up with something good about them. Do I like their hair? Do I like the shirt they're wearing? It doesn't matter. It's just a way to change the channel in your brain. And look, I'm not asking you to find good things about bad people. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just asking you not to make up bad things about ordinary people, because it's not good for you and it's not good for them. And it's also detrimental to the way in general you see the world around you. All right, so minding the mind, and I will probably come back and speak about this a little bit more in a different fashion, but minding the mind is a deeper and more useful practice that leads you down a path of more, what I want to say is more permanent mindfulness, right? Living a mindful life does not mean moving to the monastery. It means interrupting your mind enough that you're actually present to your experience when you're having it, rather than up in the attic, up in the tower, assessing things or remembering things and assigning meaning from some old story, right? The last place that you want to be is up in the tower, looking down, because it just makes a mess of things. So another mindfulness tool that I'll give you to play with for minding the mind is just to have the imaginary trip from the tower down to the ground floor of the house of your body. Actually, when you catch yourself up there ruminating and spinning and making stuff up, not just a breath or two, but with that breath or two, have the thought, the feeling in your body of literally coming down those spiral stairs. Get down out of the mind and get back to the center of your body, where you can be a noticing being and not always just an assessing, judging being. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. This is Raven Dana, walking between the worlds with you. And in this case, that between is between your thoughts. So I would love to hear from you and have some reports about how minding your mind is going. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'll see you then. I'll see you later. I'll see you next time. That was those two things, crossing paths. All right, bye now.